Hey there, how's it going everybody? Dan here with plantabundance.com. So it's that time of year again. We're just a little over a week away from the spring equinox, and I'm building up my Hugelkultur beds as I do each year. So what ends up happening is I lose about 10 to 12 inches each year as the Hugelkultur decomposes and everything settles down. And I could just leave it as is and plant it back out, and that would be just fine. But I prefer to keep building it up and keep it at a level that's more comfortable to work with, more like a raised bed style. And so today I just want to share with you how I go about doing that, and also show you what plants I'm planting out into these beds and why. So first off, I'm adding quite a few larger logs into the beds this year. And then what I do is I use the smaller branches and sticks to fill in any gaps, and also to create a skeleton-like structure around the edge of the mound. I look at it like putting a puzzle together. It can actually be pretty fun. So after I get the larger logs and the sticks in place, I then put a nice heavy layer of wood chips down. And this is like putting a skin over the entire Hugelkultur. It really helps to further enhance its ability to retain moisture from the winter rains throughout the entire summer months. So now that I got the beds built up to my liking and we're still in the winter season, I'm going to allow these mounds a bit of time to get saturated with the winter rains before I start planting it out. So we've had some really good rain events here in the Bay Area, California, and now I'm ready to start planting things out. And I just want to share with you some of the strategies I'm using to not only create the most abundance and have the most success, but to also create an appealing and functional design that works very well in the landscape. So one thing I'll do is, in the areas of the Hugelkultur where it's predominantly still wood and wood chips, rather than try to plant anything into the top of the mound, I'll plant vining crops at the base of the mound and allow those vines to crawl up and over the Hugelkultur where the fruits will be easily accessible and also off the ground. And I found this to be a very effective way to do it. So I planted out some calabash gourd around this mound, and I've had tremendous success with this crop in previous years, and I've documented that, so you might want to check out that video if you're interested. When it comes to planting out the top of the Hugelkultur, I like to mix both perennial and annual crops into the design. Now the mulch is built up about 8 to 10 inches, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push back the chips until I can see the top of the mound where we've got some soil already. And by doing this, I'm creating somewhat of a natural pot. Then I can add a bit of native soil into that space and go ahead and plug in a plant. Here I'm putting in an Armenian cucumber, and here's another crop that I've had great success with on the Hugelkultur. It's a very abundant, prolific, and great tasting plant, and although it's called a cucumber, it's actually a melon. It's closely related to the cantaloupe, and it really makes a great addition to homemade juices, which I'm a big fan of. So now I'm just going to repeat the process, and in this area I'm going to be planting a merit collard that I grew from a cutting. As you can see, we got some beautiful root structure on this plant. I think it's really going to love its new home here. So throughout the season, what ends up happening is these chips continue to decompose and the Hugelkultur continues to settle. Those chips will go down another few inches and the plant will be very well established, and the roots will have grown down into the mound and remain very productive throughout the summer and fall months. Next, I'll be planting out a garden mum. This is a great perennial flower to add to Hugelkultur. It's very abundant. Here's an example of some mum that's growing back out of this mound that I planted last year. And although it does die back, it's a short die back, only from mid-December until early February, and then it starts growing out again and putting off some really nice green foliage. And when it starts to bloom, it really is quite beautiful. You can get these in different colors, yellow, orange, purple, but they make a great beneficial insect attractor for bees, butterflies, and just adds to the overall appeal to the design. So moving forward, I'm continually coming across bunches and bunches of worms throughout this mound, and this is a great indicator of good things to come. These worms are helping to break down the decomposing matter, they're aerating the soil beneath the chips, and they're leaving behind worm castings in their wake. So here you can see I pushed back the chips once again to the top of the Hugelkultur mound where the soil is very nice from years of wood chips breaking down with the native soil and the branches and other organic matter that made up this mound. So I'm just going to tease these roots out a bit as it's been potted up for quite some time. And plug her on in. And on a side note, this plant is very easy to propagate. It spreads out every year and you could just simply dig out a clump of this and you'll have yourself a whole new flower bush. And just another great thing about this plant. Next, I'm going to be going over some of my favorite crops to plant around the base of the Hugelkultur. Starting off with some red potatoes that we were eating on in the kitchen. Started to sprout out, so I went ahead and saved that bag, waiting for a good moment to plant these out. And now's the time. There's really nothing easier than planting potatoes. Just dig a little trench and throw them on in. And if you leave a little bit of the harvest in the ground each year, it'll continually come back as a perennial. Next, I got this thick patch of Egyptian walking onions over here. And these are really easy to separate and then transplant out to other areas of the garden. So Egyptian walking onions are another perennial, and not only do they produce excellent onion greens in a bulb below ground, but they also produce smaller bulbettes above ground that are very tasty. So look into Egyptian walking onions if you haven't already. Next, I've got some yacon here, and I'm lucky enough to have yacon established throughout the landscape, and it's very easy to transplant and propagate. So here I'm just popping out a cluster of tuber, and after just a minute I can separate this out into several plants. Another one of my favorite ways to plant around the base and on the top of the Hugelkultur is just to plug in seeds here and there, especially larger seeds, like those of squash, beans, gourds. And I'll just kind of randomly go around and scatter in a few seeds, and what grows, grows, and what doesn't, and I can easily thin it out to my liking. But this has turned out to be a great technique when planting out the Hugelkultur. Next, I've got this Bocking 14 Comfrey. Love the Comfrey plant. It makes a great fertilizer chop and drop, so you can prune this plant several times throughout the year. And just stuff it into different areas of the Hugelkultur or wherever in your landscape. And this is a biodynamic accumulator. And despite the controversy surrounding its internal usage, I still use this crop as food. But I'd encourage you to do research before determining if that's right for you. It's also a great topical medicinal with a myriad of uses, but again, a very easy plant to propagate. And this Bocking 14 cultivar doesn't reproduce from seed, so you don't have to worry about any invasiveness with this plant. So each year the root mass will grow out a little larger if you allow it, and it's very easy to just pop the plant out and propagate it by root division. Now if you leave any root mass behind where the plant was, it's going to continually flush out a new plant, so I'm just going to go ahead and backfill this area and let it grow back out. And I'll be transplanting this Comfrey to a few different locations around the base of this Hugelkultur. And while doing so, I came across a great surprise. Here we've got some hyphae strands that when massed together create something called mycelium. This is a very powerful indicator of a healthy ecosystem here, so I'm very happy to see this. I'll plant another one over here. Well, that's it for now, everybody. I just want to thank you for tuning in, and as always, I hope this video finds you and finds you well, out in the world and out in your garden, planting more abundance in your life. Take care, everybody. I'll be talking to you again soon.